James Franklin is now 7-2 versus Ohio State in the spread. He is 1-8 versus Ohio State in the statistic that actually matters at the end of the day. Wins and losses. 1-8 in wins and losses, 7-2 regarding the spread. I do not know what else to say. James Franklin is not a big-time head coach. He just isn't. Penn State leads 21-16. Their defense was playing fine. Was actually playing an overall good game up until that point, only allowing one OSU touchdown and forcing 3 field goals by Noah Ruggles. Noah Ruggles attempted a 4th one, and he shanked it in the second quarter. Penn State's offense had some woes. Ohio State's D-line, which we'll talk more about, played a fantastic game, pressuring Clifford. The D-line picked him off, I think, 2 times, one of which was returned for 6 by JT Tuimoloau. But to get back to the point, the fourth quarter, Penn State's leading 21-16. ESPN's Football Power Index, Ohio State starts off the game with an 80.6% chance to win. It hovers at around that number or stays about the same until about the 11:30 mark in the second quarter when Penn State scores their first touchdown. Then Penn State scores their second, and from this point until early in the fourth, it hangs at around the 60 to 50% mark for Ohio State's chances to win. Then, as Penn State marches down the field, they convert that 4th and 1, which originally Penn State, it was 4th and 1 early in the fourth quarter on a critical drive. They kick it, it's shanked, but there's a false start. Penn State kicks it again on 4th and 6. It's shanked, but Ohio State has an illegal formation. James Franklin and his staff decide that the kicker shanked it twice, and they actually make a wise game management decision, and they go for it, and they convert it. And for the first time, Penn State's given a favorable chance to win. They score, and Penn State's then given a 68% chance to win. And from there, in just less than 2 minutes, 1 minute and 9 seconds to be exact, it goes from Penn State being given a 68.3% chance to win to Ohio State being given an 88.2% chance to win. Absolutely crazy. I mean, the defense, and Penn State had 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter, which really didn't help them. At the same time, though, in 11 offensive plays, Ohio State scored 21 points in the fourth quarter. That's not on the offense. That just isn't. That's not on Penn State's offense there. It's on the defense. You allow 21 points in 11 plays. That means that over 25% of Ohio State's plays in those 3 drives after Penn State's touchdown early in the fourth, over 25% of them were touchdowns. Just absolutely crazy. 44-31 was the final score of this game. 44-31. And it was 16-14, Ohio State entering the fourth quarter. Penn State took a 5-point lead, 21-16, and then from there, Ohio State, it was like Penn State activated a kill switch by scoring on that 4th and 1 play where Katron Allen barely punched it in with the help of his offensive line, fellow running backs, and quarterback. Punched it in. It's like that activated a kill switch, and from there you knew it was game. After Cade Stover got that 24-yard pass from CJ Stroud. That was all Cade Stover, by the way. Broke multiple tackles, kept his balance, used his hand to keep his balance, and just got into the end zone. That was something else. Same with JT Tuimoloau. He returned a 14-yard interception, which effectively sealed the game. Tuimoloau also had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 1 pass defended, 6 total tackles. 3 of them were solo. Tommy Eichenberg had 15 total tackles, 10 of which were solo. So he had more solo tackles than anyone else had total tackles on his team. And he also had a QB hurry. Ohio State's defense, it was something else, honestly. Penn State, truth be told, scored the 24 points that I predicted. They scored 31, so I was wrong there. But that last touchdown, very much like Iowa's final touchdown against Michigan, purely garbage time. Purely garbage time. So Penn State covered the spread because of their last garbage time touchdown. I'm someone who, not being involved in the betting community, but also I tend to overestimate how well teams will do, especially teams like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State when they look good. I tend to overestimate the gap between teams. And part of that's because it seems like there's always a huge gap between Alabama and like 2019 LSU, 2020 Bama, 2016 Alabama, or these great teams. This year, I have to confess, there doesn't look to be a 2019 LSU, a 2020 Bama, or a 2001 Miami. Ohio State would be the closest to that. And they themselves in this game had some problems, like Michigan did when it comes to the red zone. The difference is you exchange the troubles with the pass offense that Michigan has with the troubles of the run offense that Ohio State has. It was a struggle. And it really was. This was a game for 3.5 quarters. But Ohio State finished strong. Again, that 28-3 scoring run after Penn State scored that touchdown to take the lead, that's dominance. It was dominance defensively. It was dominance offensively. That was phenomenal. That was a phenomenal run by Ryan Day, Jim Knowles, Kevin Wilson, Justin Fry, Brian Hartline, just the entire staff, the team, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams. That was just, Tommy Eichenberg, CJ Stroud, Cade Stover, Henderson with that 41-yard momentum-sapping run. That was something else. That was good football. That was elite football in that final fourth quarter that Ohio State played. The Buckeye offense is terrifying when it gets rolling. When that kill switch is activated, there's nothing you can do to stop it. You can limit it. You can delay it. Even last year when Ohio State played Michigan, there were moments where the kill switch was on with offense. Like when CJ Stroud made that amazing pass to Garrett Wilson, and there was nothing that Michigan could do to defend that, and Ohio State took a 14-10 lead. That's an example of the kill switch. There will be plays in every game when you face Ohio State where they will have death blow plays, and it's up to the opposing team if they're strong enough. If they're strong enough to not get KO'd by those plays, it's up to them how can they respond, how they will respond, will they respond? And Penn State did not respond. They couldn't respond in the fourth quarter. And that's why they lost 44-31 at home. This offense is just, it really is. It's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And Henderson, to his credit, had the much better game. He got more carries than Williams. He did better than Mayan Williams. And, the offense is terrifying. Now, what I will say is you factor out that 41-yard run, and Ohio State doesn't even average over 2 yards per carry. Their rushing offense, it has some things they have to work on. And part of that's because Penn State, their rushing game, by game I mean rushing defense, it did step up. It really did step up. I was wrong in the sense that Ohio State was going to really use the run game effectively against Penn State and get their job done there. That's not what happened. CJ Stroud had 354 passing yards for 10.7 yards per pass attempt, 1 passing touchdown. He had a 93.6 QBR. That's like a really darn good QBR. And he had a 178.9 passer rating, which is a great passer rating, against a secondary that's an amazing secondary. So Penn State, their strength being the passing defense, their weakness, especially the Michigan game exposed this, being the rushing defense. Ohio State does have some problems to fix in that rushing game department, and those certainly did not help in the red zone. But CJ Stroud in that passing game, when you average nearly 14 yards per reception, you have 354 passing yards, and you have longs of 23, 42, 24, and 37 for different receivers. That's fantastic. What a job by Ryan Day, the offense that he manages. Penn State does have potential, but their defense just isn't good. Against Michigan, your pass defense, it's good, but the run defense allows 400 and change in rushing yards. This game, now granted, Penn State, they didn't, Sean Clifford made some bad throws, and Ohio State's defense made some clutch and unreal plays at the line of scrimmage, like JT Tuimoloau picking off CJ Stroud. You don't see that too often. He had 2 interceptions. Zach Harrison had another. All three of Ohio State's interceptions were by the defensive line. That's unheard of. That's unreal. So it's not all Clifford's fault that those things happened. And yes, Penn State's offense did, they made some critical errors. At the same time, though, they had the lead. They scored 21 points. They scored 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. Took the lead in the 4th. They were in position to win. They have potential. Parker Washington, unreal player. Same with Mitchell Tinsley. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton have talent. Clifford even has talent, as showcased by some of the decisions he made and even some of the throws that he made. And we've known that for his entire career. Their defense just isn't good, though. And like last year and in 2020, where it was really their offensive line and run game that was a huge problem, their run game and offensive line are better, and their defense takes a big step back. And this defense, if you want to debate that it's bad, Brent Pry defense is just look at last year. They didn't allow 44 to Ohio State. They kept them in that 30-point range, which that's how you beat Ohio State. You keep them in that high 20, low mid 30-point range, and that way that gives your offense a chance to outscore them without engaging in a pure shootout. Michigan did the same thing with their defense last year. Notre Dame kept themselves in a position to win it until the end. Similarly, this year by holding Ohio State to 21 points. The problem is their offense was far too bad to score. Penn State, 44 points against Ohio State allowed. 41 versus Michigan. They've allowed 90. They allowed 85 points in their 2 losses versus top 5 teams. That's a whole lot. And they only scored 48. Only scored 48 in those 2 losses as well. 31 against Ohio State. If we're being honest, it's really more like 24, and only 17 against the Michigan Wolverines. Ohio State's wide receivers are unreal, especially Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm so happy that preseason I had him on my first team all Big Ten. 783 receiving yards, 10 receiving touchdowns. He averages 16.3 yards per reception. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Travion Henderson is from Hopewell, Virginia. Julian Fleming is from Pennsylvania as well. He had 2 receptions for 27 yards. So a lot of kids who are in that Penn State recruiting grounds area. So 2 of Ohio State's wide receivers from Pennsylvania, Travion Henderson, a running back from Virginia. Penn State typically recruits pretty well in that Virginia area. Same thing with Pennsylvania, obviously, as they're the main program in Pennsylvania. Biggest program by far. Wide receivers are unreal for Ohio State. Cade Stover's a really solid, underrated tight end. CJ Stroud's the best quarterback in the nation. At every game he plays, just continues to cement that. It's him and Hendon Hooker is probably 1A or 1 for Stroud, 1B or 2 for Hendon Hooker. Stroud is a few hundred feet higher than Hooker. Hooker's a little lower, and then everyone else is pretty significantly down there, in my opinion, when it comes to quarterback. The Buckeyes are beginning to show inconsistencies on the ground, though. Against Iowa, they struggled, and against Penn State, they struggled by far even more. And Ryan Day wants to be balanced. You have talent at running back with Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. And Penn State, to their credit, they have P.J. Mustipher. They have talent on that defensive line in that linebacker room. Talent all over that defense. It's interesting, though. In a certain sense, Michigan and Ohio State, and I'm in Michigan videos and Ohio State videos, I bring in the rival of each into the equation because it looks like they're going to be 11-0 entering the game. So as it comes closer, I find it more appropriate to talk about the opponent that they will face on that November 26th top 4, top 3, maybe top 2 matchup. I really hope it's top 2, but that would require some crazy things with Tennessee and Georgia being undefeated right now, along with Clemson. Anyway, Michigan is having a lot of inconsistencies in red zone and in passing the ball, and that's become very apparent over the last 2 games. For Ohio State, it's the same thing on the ground. Inconsistencies in the red zone and the ground game. Michigan has commonalities with Ohio State in that they have a lot of potential on offense. Their offenses are high scoring, but they do have some inconsistencies in the red zone. Where they're different or opposites in is where those inconsistencies lie. For Ohio State, it's the run game. Michigan, it's the pass game. On defense, and I think this game showed it, Ohio State's defense has a much higher ceiling than Michigan's does, and a lot of that's just the raw 5-star talent they have and the elite DC and Jim Knowles that they have, who's wise, analytical, is a very complicated scheme, which has a very high ceiling. And at the same time, Ohio State, their floor on defense, I do believe, is lower than Michigan's floor too. So Ohio State's the team with a higher ceiling. They're the more modern team than Michigan. At the same time, they do have, I think, a lower floor than the Michigan Wolverines. I'm very excited for that November 26th matchup because Ohio State's D-line, Michigan's D-line, I mean, if you combine Michigan and Ohio State, like as 2 teams, you take the best from both worlds and put them together, that would be an insane team. It'd be a crazy team. It'd be one of the best. Maybe this is wrong. I feel like it would have a chance of being one of the better teams in the college football playoff era. I didn't say the best. I said it'd have a chance of being one of the better teams. Big difference. Penn State and Manny Diaz have wrecked this defensive unit. Absolutely wrecked it. I've already made that point. A Brent Pry defense would never, under any circumstances, allow what happened to happen on a consistent basis, and Manny Diaz has done it in two games already against top 5 opponents. Granted, these are some of the best Michigan and Ohio State teams that a James Franklin squad has faced, but it's just still not good. And also, just a little side note, Beaver Stadium had a lot of red in it. It reminded me a lot of the 2019 Michigan versus Ohio State game, where it's mostly, maize and blue, but you have like this hue of red. I got that watching this game. Like you saw that hue of red, almost like the white was stained with the red. Ohio State fans, they do their job on the road. They travel very well. The Penn State offense did its job outside of Sean Clifford, and even then, not all of that's his fault. 3 picks from the defensive line, 2 of them by JT Tuimoloau, 1 by Zach Harrison. That's crazy. That's crazy. And honestly, part of that is probably the offensive line not doing its job either and letting Tuimoloau and Harrison get in those positions. Play calling also has to do and factor in with that, which, again, ties to the head man and James Franklin, who is 1-8 versus Ohio State in wins and losses, 7-2 in the spread. That is a Scott Frost type of statistic, where Nebraska was winners against the spread in 2021 and losers in just about every other way. Penn State, your college football playoff hopes and Big Ten championship game hopes are over. But this team can finish 11-2. This team can win out. They have 4 more games. Those 4 more games are against Rutgers, they're against Maryland, Indiana, and Michigan State. That's a pretty easy November slate. Now, Maryland, with the offense they have and their defense's capabilities of playing well. So that Maryland game, I think, is the toughest game if you're a Nittany Lion, followed by Michigan State. I frankly think the 2 road games are the easiest games. Though, Indiana maybe could give some trouble. I don't know. They seem to give a lot of teams some trouble, but Maryland and Michigan State are the 2 toughest games for this Nittany Lions squad moving forward. They very well could go 4-0 in that stretch, finish 10-2, and finish 11-2 with a typical New Year's Six Bowl win or typical bowl game win that James Franklin and his squad tend to get. That's all I have to say for this video. If you haven't already, please check out my merchandise store. The link to it is down in the description. It would be a really great way for this community to show out, and it's really good quality. Comfortable t-shirts, comfortable sweatshirts, and an awesome logo. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, click the notification bell, and comment your thoughts on this video and on James Franklin's future at Penn State down below. If you're watching or listening via Spotify, please follow the channel. See you guys later.